talk about Kickstarters.
Yep.
4 or 5 years ago, this website didn't exist. From my knowledge, we didn't know about it, but now it is huge, and it's a different format, a different avenue for game developers to make their passion projects, to make the games that they feel the consumer wants to have. And one of those people is Tim Schafer, the original designer behind Grim Fandango. He's created a Kickstarter. He asked for $400,000. He got $3.3 million. So obviously an audience is there that wants to play the type of games that Tim Schafer is planning on developing. Your thoughts on Kickstarter? Is it a good method for these individuals to connect straight to the consumers, or is it an unprofessional way to design a game from a charity?
Well, it's clearly a channel that's worthwhile that you can deliver a game in, because we've seen it happen, right? And someone like Tim Schafer, as I sort of commented before, Tim could probably make that happen anywhere. I mean, Kickstarter or otherwise. I think what's necessary is you need someone like a Tim. You need a character. You need a face of this thing that you want people to invest in. So people are investing in Tim because Tim delivers. So if you can make that impression, if you can get in front of a camera and in Kickstarter as a type of social network and deliver this promise, and people look and believe in you, yes, absolutely. What I'm not sure of is if sort of the faceless larger publishers can do the same without having that front person. So if someone like a Sony, a Microsoft, a Ubisoft, a whoever came around and said, hey, we're going to make XYZ game, give us money. I just don't know how that's going to happen without someone that really comes off as a star.
You bring that up, and it reminds me of this sway that is happening in the world of AAA publishing of downloadable content, and how you already have a game where you purchase it for $60, but wait, you can get this for $2 or $5 or $14. And that really turns me off when I've purchased a game, a whole game, and I plan on playing the entire game experience for the amount of money that I purchased for a full game, $60, yet I'm not getting the whole game because there's more and more small little purchases I have to make after it. Now, I'm okay if they're cosmetic, and I'm okay if it's an actual expansion to the game. I'm not okay with day one downloadable content. I think that, I don't know what to think of it. I don't like it as a consumer right when it happens. But going back to the faces of individuals compared to publishers, when I think about downloadable content, I think of EA. I think of mainly think of EA. I think of other publishers that have that, but I don't know any of the designers, any of the decision makers behind that. Now, Tim Schafer, I know who he is. I know he's a decision maker, and therefore I have a more personal relationship as a consumer. And coming back to that, do you feel that there needs to be more exposure for the people behind these developing companies or big developers instead of just hiding behind a publisher or developer name?
Yeah, I mean, musicians are rock stars in the music field, and movie stars are the rock stars of movies, if that makes sense. It's the developers, the engineers, the artists, the PR people, the marketing people, the community managers that work really hard and put their, all their energy to deliver a great game to the audience, that are the rock stars of video games. So yeah, it'd be great if more people inside the walls of these publishers and developers could connect outside to the players themselves. The times that I've done that on the titles I've worked with, it paid dividends, both with the fans feeling like they were closer to the thing that they loved, and for us as video game professionals, really hearing directly from our fans what they want. I think it's absolutely necessary, and I think our traditional culture is to limit that to just certain people, and I think that's a mistake.
I think some of the decisions of them to only do it in investor meetings or to go to huge conventions like Comic-Con and other events where they talk about the project, but that's it. We see hardly any media coverage outside of it except for third-party publishers and journalists talking about what they said. So therefore, I invite any game publisher, developer, anyone involved in the industry that wants to talk one-on-one about what they're doing, what they're involved in, and what their opinions are, they're welcome to come on my show. That is an open invitation because I feel they definitely deserve more exposure and also more credit to what they do. And for one, Omar, I appreciate you coming on the show to give your opinion about what's happening at LucasArts, and having a respected individual in the industry itself brings a lot of accreditation to your opinions, not just myself and another friend being two talking heads about what we think, and just being consumers. It matters when a developer, someone behind the scenes, has something to say about it. Let's move on here, talking about different game types for Star Wars and this whole mobile front that a lot of game developers are moving towards. My boss, Russell, showed me a pinball game, a Star Wars pinball game on the Samsung phone he had today, which looked great. It looked really cool, but to condense a Star Wars experience to a pinball game should not be the end-all be-all of game development and licensing. So with the changes of the gaming scene, with more formats and more freemium models, what kind of games would you like to see for a Star Wars or an Indiana Jones type game, and what are your reservations about where games are compared to the experience of the movies?
Well, it's, again, with a brand like Star Wars, that's tough, right? Because if you're a big geek about Star Wars, I am, and I'm betting you are as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, you want that experience to be really authentic. So, you see that pinball game, or you see like Star Wars Angry Birds, and you're like, huh, but it did pretty well, right? I mean,
yeah.
Saw it everywhere. I mean, I really did see it everywhere. For me, the strategies that I think make sense for that, there's one I worked on that a lot of people do called companion gaming. So, you have a core game, you have Star Wars Battlefront, or, the Old Republic, or whatever. And then you create another game that's a companion. It's not a port. It's not meant to be trying to do Battlefront on, an iOS device, but it's some piece of it where it's still true, where you could do, maybe you can suit up your character, right? So when you're not in the battle, maybe, and you're on the road and you have your iPhone or your iPad, maybe I can like go through, all the different like bounty hunter gear I might have. Something like that. That makes a lot of sense, and it's still true to the brand.
That reminds me of something that EA did very well for Dragon Age 2. Say what you will of the single-player experience, but they had a Facebook game, the Dragon Age Legends game,
yes,
that when you leveled up in that game, you actually got an item in the game itself, which was great. I didn't have to invest any money into it. I could just simply play it, have fun on Facebook with some friends, and then it actually affected the game itself. Not a huge effect. It wasn't game-breaking, but I could definitely see more of that to bigger titles, and then actually tying a little social game to it. I think it's fun. I don't like having my top score on the main game posted on Facebook every day. It's just something I don't really mind, but you can turn that off, and that's the social movement as well. Did you happen to play the Clone Wars game with the freemium model for Star Wars?
Yes, I did. And, particularly for the kids, I thought the content was appropriate, and I liked it for that. And I knew a few people that worked on it. I didn't care for how monetization was so in your face.
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking around the public commons area, and there's literally, floating above everybody's head, or floating above certain things' heads, the dollar symbol, whatever the version of that is in the Empire, credits or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, all these are for sale, and it has a floating hologram dollar figure on top of its head. It was too much for me personally, but my understanding is it worked from a business model, from a revenue model. So that's always a touchy one. I prefer a great experience that's at the right price, that, if you want to save time, for a player, time versus money, they have that option, but I don't need billboards every 2 feet in the game.
Well, freemium is a model that has swept the globe, especially because of League of Legends and its success, and more game developers and licensing maybe want to take that route. Tying up our conversation here, Omar, I want to talk about the movie tie-ins. Episodes 7, 8, and 9 have officially been announced. I've actually sent in my headshot and resume to the casting agent, so that'd be great. I could pay a background character, I can wear a Stormtrooper outfit, whatever. I'd love to be a part of it. With the movie tie-ins themselves, this seems like a huge avenue for LucasArts to license out products to developers to make movie tie-in games. However, the history of games made in association with movies or based on movies have been abysmal, with a few exceptions. One of those exceptions is GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64 and Enter the Matrix. In Enter the Matrix, you got to play in between two films with characters that are in the films. They're not huge characters, but they're important. And the stories that happen actually makes a difference of what happens in the third film. To me, that was the best way to incorporate a video game outside of the movie experience. Hopefully, LucasArts licensing and different developers can recognize that. I do not like to play a game based on the movie because I'd rather enjoy the story in the movie rather than relive it in the game where I know what's going to happen, I know how it ends. But your thoughts now that Star Wars 7, 8, 9 are in planning mode, and what type of games and development could you see coming out of different developers for these?
So I think you hit it right on the head, right? You shouldn't just do like the movie in the game. There's a number of issues here. One, in order for something like a true movie license to be successful for the movie and the game, that production, I see no other way but that production has to be unified at the beginning in some manner. And from what I've seen in my experiences, it's often not. It's sort of like, hey, we're going to do this game in partnership with a large publisher, but it's sort of like, a type of marketing. And so we'll just sort of give it to them and, some of the content assets, and they can go, and when we're about to launch the movie and they're ready with the game, we'll talk about that again in a strategy of some sort. Totally not enough effort done in making that real. Now, on the flip side, something I've seen recently that was super cool, and it's not a movie per se, but it's a TV show, is what we're seeing on Defiance for the Sci-Fi Channel. Mm-hmm. My understanding, and this is again as an outsider, is that they really did do that from the beginning. And the way that content is affected is they affect each other. It's the TV show, I believe, is in St. Louis, whereas the game is in San Francisco, here in the beautiful city. That's great. So there's a whole other story going on. The whole world is in turmoil, but the game takes place in one place, the TV show in another, and they can be in the same universe without, and have their own life without totally overlapping each other and making it difficult to have the story straight.
Yeah, it's quite possible to do it. It just takes the right minds and the right planning and the right understanding of both mediums, of both how to tell a story in a movie and how to tell a story in a video game, coming together and sitting down and getting the story straight. Because a lot of times we don't see that. It seems like a complete disconnect from the movie development and the video game development. Well, in a perfect world, in my perfect world, there would be no more prequels. I think our generation is over with prequels. We don't need any backstory or things that happened thousands of years before the main events of a film. I want something new. I want something creative. I want the writers to be challenged to create something compelling and worthwhile, to create new heroes, new generational role models that Han Solo and Luke Skywalker was to my parents' generation and to my generation growing up as a kid. I feel that people are getting way too attached to the idea of creating something. Oh, let's check out the backstory. Let's look at the history of this character. I don't care. I want something new. I want to see from what's been completed on into new territory. That's why I'm excited about episodes 7, 8, and 9. And, hopefully it won't be the same. They weren't a disaster, but what happened is nobody could say no to George Lucas. It wasn't art through adversity like the original trilogy was. That's a whole other segment. But I feel that we've gotten past this whole prequel thing for movies and for television and for video games, and it should be from now to the future. That's just me. Your thoughts on that, Omar?
Yeah, I don't want to see any more prequels, and I don't need to see reboots either, right? Mm-hmm. And I think part of it is, a brand, which again everyone wants to hold sacred and make great. A brand somehow needs to grow up with the audiences that are growing up with it over time. So it would make sense to me to see an older Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and some other generation around with them that is introduced so that, things continue. And that would make sense. I have kids as well. And, from what I've enjoyed with them so far with Star Wars made sense. And I think it would be great if they got to grow up with some characters the way I did. And, there's a way that we can all, have fun and do that together. It's tough. It's tough when you have this, brand that's so successful to say, hey, let's change it. That's tough. And I'm sure it was tough for Mr. Lucas as well, but it sounds like, he's even going to let other people direct and really manage that going forward.
Yep. It does take courage, but that's where the best stories come from. Like I said, art through adversity. It's unknown territory. You don't know if you're going to be successful, but you're going to try anyways. That's what he did for the original trilogy. That's what he did for Indiana Jones with Steven Spielberg, and those were huge successes. I'm confident that other filmmakers can do the same as well with the same IP, with the same material. That about does it for today's episode. I want to, again, remind everyone that if you have ever played a LucasArts game, to take a second, pause, and realize how cool that game was in its time, how much that game meant to you, and in some cases how that game pushed the envelope of video game development and technology, and how that has helped us become the video game industry that we are today. I wish all of the LucasArts individuals that are no longer working for LucasArts the best of luck. I'm sure these talented individuals will find jobs very soon. Omar, I'm going to let you have the final word before we close out.
Well, thank you for having me on here. And, despite our server issues or whatever was happening, my thoughts is I hope, all the people at LucasArts land somewhere successful. I hope I see you later tonight and I can, give you a hug. You did really great work, and I'm sure you're going to be somewhere even better.
Omar, thank you for joining me on this episode, and thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. You can follow Omar on Twitter at Appleweed, just like it's spelled, and you can follow me on Clutch08, and you can follow LucasArts as well. I'm sure they're going to have some more updates, hopefully, about what's going to happen in the future of licensing. You can follow them at LucasArts Games. Thanks for watching. Up to Speed. I'm Clutch. Have a great night.